Okay, welcome back once again to all my dear students. Today we are going to discuss the next topic, that is intensive and extensive properties, then state function as well as the internal energy, right? But before that, let us discuss the topic which we had discussed in the last video. That first of all we had discussed about the system and surrounding, that what is system, what is surrounding. Then we had discussed about the different types of system, that closed system, then open system, then isolated system, right? Then we had discussed about the process. Now basically there are three different types of process are there. First one is a isothermal, second one is a isobaric, and third one is a adiabatic. Okay, so adiabatic, that is it neither receive nor gain the heat. Isobaric means the pressure is constant. Isothermal means the temperature is constant. So all these things we had discussed in the last video. Now today we are going to discuss the next point, that is the extensive and intensive properties. So let us start. First point, that is the extensive and intensive properties. Extensive and intensive properties, right? Now please pay attention. पहले तो हम बात करेंगे एक्सटेंसिव प्रॉपर्टीज को. एक्सटेंसिव प्रॉपर्टीज किसको बोलते हैं? कि सम प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ अ सब्सटेंस डिपेंड्स ऑन द क्वांटिटी ऑफ द मैटर. जो मैटर की क्वांटिटी पे डिपेंड करता है ना, उसको एक्सटेंसिव प्रॉपर्टीज बोलते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल, some example, if we take some examples, then the mass of substance, that is a volume, then enthalpy formation, then we can say entropy, free energy, then elevation in boiling point, depression in freezing point. Remember, I am talking about the elevation. Elevation means increasing in boiling point, depression means decreasing in melting point or freezing point, right? So all these are the extensive properties. उसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? Extensive. See, entropy, free energy, then enthalpy, that all these things we are going to discuss later on this chapter, right? So let us start here. Extensive properties. Extensive properties. चलो, right? पहला point क्या लिखूंगा? Some properties of the substance depends on some properties of a substance depends on the quantity of the matter, the quantity of the matter, right? Such property is called extensive property. Such properties is called what? Extensive properties. Understand बेटा? उसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? Extensive properties. For example, the mass of substance. Example लिखते हैं, the mass of substance. कोई भी substance है, उसका mass उसकी extensive properties है. Then next one, that is volume. Then next one we can say enthalpy. Okay, so enthalpy of formation. Enthalpy of formation. Then entropy. Then free energy. Right? Okay, and elevation in boiling point. Elevation in boiling point. Depression in freezing point, right? Depression in what? Freezing point. Freezing point, etc. Okay, so all this we can say it as a what? Extensive property. And we can also say that the unit of all these extensive properties are in per mole, right? These properties expressed in the unit. These properties expressed in unit, that is of per mole. कौन सा यूनिट? पर मोल. ओके, और यू कैन ऑल्सो राइट डाउन दिस वे, और मोल इनवर्स. अंडरस्टैंड? नाउ this is the first one, that is all about the extensive properties. Now let us discuss about the intensive properties. Intensive properties. चलो, intensive properties किसको बोलते हैं? The properties of a substance which do not depend upon the mass of substance. वो mass पे depend नहीं करता, but it's depend upon the structure of a compound, that is called the intensive properties, right? वो उसका जो भी substance है ना, उसके structure पे depend करता है, तो उसको intensive properties बोलते हैं. For example, the melting point of any solid. तो सभी solid का melting point same नहीं होगा, but that is a depend upon their structure, right? Then density, then boiling point of liquid, conductivity, all these are the intensive properties. So let us start. Next one, that is intensive properties. The properties of a substance, the properties of a substance, right, which do not depends upon the, which do not depends upon the mass of substance, mass of the substance, mass of the substance, right, but depends upon structure of compound, but depends upon the structure of compound, depends upon the structure of compound, are known as intensive properties, are known as intensive properties. Understand? उसको क्या बोलते हैं हम? Intensive properties. Okay? Now, as for example, चलो example लेते हैं. The melting point of solid substance, the melting point of solid substance. फिर बाद में कौन सा एग्जाम्पल आएगा? डेंसिटी. चलो, डेंसिटी. देन बॉइलिंग पॉइंट ऑफ लिक्विड, राइट, बॉइलिंग पॉइंट ऑफ लिक्विड. देन डेंसिटी, देन कंडक्टिविटी. चलो, conductivity. See, different metal will have the different conductivity, that is a depend upon the intensive property, that is a that structure of that particular compound. Then refraction, etc., right? So all these things you have to know. Now the boiling point of liquid is intensive property. By elevation in the boiling point, that is called the extensive property. We can say the boiling point of liquid, right, is an intensive properties, while elevation in boiling point, that is increasing in boiling point, is an extensive properties. Extensive properties. Understand? Is it clear? कि अगर ये मैं लिक्विड बॉइलिंग पॉइंट की बात करूं ना, तो अगर बॉइलिंग पॉइंट ऑफ लिक्विड है तो दैट इज अ इंटेंसिव प्रॉपर्टीज, क्योंकि डिफरेंट लिक्विड विल हैव द डिफरेंट बॉइलिंग पॉइंट एंड दैट इज अ डिपेंड अपॉन द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर कंपाउंड, राइट? बट एलिवेशन इंक्रीजिंग द बॉइलिंग पॉइंट, दैट इज अ डिपेंड अपॉन द एक्सटर्नल प्रॉपर्टीज, right? That is a extensive properties. Why? That is a depends upon the mass of that particular substance. Okay, so all these things you have to know. Note down. चलो नेक्स्ट पॉइंट डिस्कस करते हैं। नेक्स्ट पॉइंट है स्टेट फंक्शन। यस, चलो स्टेट फंक्शन, स्टेट फंक्शन या फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल स्टेट फंक्शन किसको बोलते हैं? द वैल्यू ऑफ द प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ सिस्टम विच डिपेंड ऑन द स्टेट ऑफ द सिस्टम। जो कोई भी सब्सटेंस है, कोई भी सिस्टम है, राइट, which is depend upon the state of the system but it does not depend on the method how that state can be obtained। वो स्टेट कैसे आया उस पे डिपेंड नहीं करता। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मुझे मेरे घर में से टेरेस में जाना है तो देयर आर डिफरेंट वे टू गो देयर, राइट। मैं सीढ़ी से जा रहा हूं या तो मैं कूद के जा रहा हूं, राइट। सो देयर आर डिफरेंट वे, बट मैं वहां पे पहुंचा, हाउ I reach that particular place, that is not depend. So that is called the state function. So I can write down the definition. See that the value of what? The value of the properties of the system, the properties of the system, right, which depend on the state of the system, which depend on the state of the system, right, which depend on the state of the system but do not depend on the method, but do not depend on the method, right, but do not depend on the method how the state can be obtained, how the state can be obtained। वो स्टेट कैसे ऑब्टेन किया उस पे डिपेंड नहीं कर रहा, तो उसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? इज कॉल्ड द स्टेट फंक्शन, इज कॉल्ड स्टेट फंक्शन, स्टेट फंक्शन। उसको हम क्या बोलेंगे? स्टेट फंक्शन, राइट। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, डिफरेंट मेथड्स आर देयर फॉर द सब्सटेंस having a mass m at a height h। let us suppose this substance is there, is a height h। इसको यहां पे ले जाने के लिए डिफरेंट मेथड्स है, राइट, बट द वैल्यू ऑफ दैट पोटेंशियल एनर्जी, दैट इज mgh, at that height is constant। इसकी पोटेंशियल एनर्जी तो क्या होगी? कांस्टेंट होगी, and thus the potential energy of the substance is said to be the state function। that's why we can say that the इस सब्सटेंस की जो पोटेंशियल एनर्जी है उसको मैं क्या बोलूंगा? स्टेट फंक्शन, राइट। फॉर एग्जांपल, there are different methods to take a substance, there are different method to take a substance, right, take a substance having mass m, having mass m, right, to a height h, height h, but the value of its potential energy, but the value of its potential energy क्या बोलेंगे हम? mgh, right, mgh at that height is constant, at that height is constant, right, and thus the potential energy of the substance is said to be the state function। thus the potential energy of what? Substance is its state फंक्शन, उसको हम क्या बोलेंगे? स्टेट फंक्शन। एक्स फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर मैं एग्जांपल लेता हूं कि इफ 1 मोल ऑफ एनी आइडियल गैस इज देयर, कोई भी आइडियल गैस है 1 मोल है, तो उसका वॉल्यूम क्या होगा? 22.4 लीटर। एट ए टेम्परेचर, कितना टेम्परेचर? 273 केल्विन। एटमॉस्फेयर, दैट इज द प्रेशर इज द 1 bar, राइट? बट द वॉल्यूम डज नॉट डिपेंड ऑन in which the state the substance was before it bring the 1 bar. तो यहां पे ये वॉल्यूम है, वो उससे पहले कितना प्रेशर था और ये प्रेशर कैसे आया उस पर डिपेंड नहीं कर रहा, तो उसको हम स्टेट फंक्शन बोलते हैं। द डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ स्टेट फंक्शन दैट वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस इन दिस चैप्टर, विच आर दे? द स्टेट फंक्शन हियर, दैट स्टेट फंक्शन, कौन कौन से स्टेट फंक्शन है? तो पहला हमको आज पढ़ना है इंटरनल एनर्जी। इंटरनल एनर्जी, ये पहला स्टेट फंक्शन जो हम आज पढ़ेंगे, यू। देन सेकेंड वन, दैट इज कॉल्ड एंथैल्पी। एंथैल्पी, राइट? एंथैल्पी, दैट इज कॉल्ड एच। थर्ड वन, दैट वी कैन से एंट्रोपी। एंट्रोपी, दैट वी कैन से एस, right? And last one, that is a free energy. Free energy, and that we can say it as a G. So all these are the state function. State function means how it will reach that particular place, it does not matter, right? Why? Because when they reach it, their potential energy will remain constant. So that is called the state function. उसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? State function. Okay, so write down all these things. Okay, चलो लास्ट पॉइंट, लेट अस डिस्कस अबाउट द इंटरनल एनर्जी। इंटरनल एनर्जी किसको बोलते हैं देखते हैं, चलो। यस, इंटरनल एनर्जी, इंटरनल एनर्जी, जिसको हम क्या बोलेंगे? यू। ओके, राइट? अभी इंटरनल एनर्जी किसको बोलते हैं? इन एवरी सब्सटेंस डेफिनेट एनर्जी इज स्टोर्ड इन इट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ इट्स मास एंड कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स, एंड विच इज कॉल्ड द इंटरनल एनर्जी। अगर मैं एग्जांपल लेता हूं कि एक सब्सटेंस है, तो इसके अंदर कोई पर्टिकुलरली इंटरनल एनर्जी है, एंड दैट इज डिपेंड्स अपॉन देयर कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स एज वेल एज द स्ट्रक्चर। उसका स्ट्रक्चर और उसके अंदर जो मास है, उसकी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स जो है, उस पे डिपेंड होती है उसकी इंटरनल एनर्जी। सो आई कैन राइट डाउन हियर दैट इन एवरी substance, right, definite energy is stored in it. Definite energy is stored in it, right, on the basis of its mass, on the basis of its mass and characteristic, on the basis of its mass and characteristic structure, right, which is called the internal energy, which is called what? Internal energy. उसको हम क्या बोलेंगे? Internal energy, that is denoted by U. Understand सभी? And this energy is stored in the form of kinetic as well as we can say it will be in the form of potential energy. This energy will be stored in form of kinetic and potential energy. This energy is stored in the form of kinetic and potential energy. Right? Is it clear? अगर the component कोई भी particles है of a substance have the linear rotation होता है, right? Vibration linear भी होता है, rotation भी होता है और vibration energy भी होती है. Linearly it will be flow. Rotation means circular path and vibration means it will be vibrate. Okay, so the component of the particle, the component of the particles, right, of substance have their what? Linear rotation and vibration energy. Linear rotation and vibration energy, right? Energy. Okay, and in addition we can also say that electrons and nucleus also possess the different types of motion. Electron and nucleus possess different types of motion. Right? Is it clear? Now suppose हमको मालूम है कि कोई भी substance it will possess the kinetic energy, right? Also there is an attraction and repulsion force between the component of the particle in the substance, right? Attraction and repulsion force between the component of the particle in the substance. Attraction and repulsion force between the particle of the substance. Okay, there is some attraction and the repulsion force is there. As you all know that between the electron there is a what? Repulsion. Between nucleus and electron, between proton and electron, that we can see it is a attraction, right? So there is a attraction and the repulsion force is there. Okay, now here the proton and neutron in the nucleus experience attractive force. We can also say that proton and neutron in the nucleus experience attractive force. It will experience the attractive force, understand? And that's why according to that equation E equals to mc square, you all know that E that is equals to mc square. What is m? M किसको बोलते हैं? तो m that is the decrease in the quantity of matter. Decrease in the quantity of matter. And c किसको बोलते हैं? तो we can say velocity of light. इसको क्या बोलते हैं? Velocity of light. Understand? ये बात हमको मालूम होनी चाहिए कि E equals to mc square, that you all know, right? Now, if the energy of the matter is changed into the heat, the large amount of the heat will be obtained. If the energy of the matter is changed, right? The energy of the matter is changed, then into the heat, change into the heat, then large amount of heat is obtained, right? अगर इसको मैं बंद करता हूं तो it will produce the large amount of heat, and that is depends upon their structure कि कितनी heat produce करेंगे तो उसका structure पे, then that is called the internal energy, right? Thus we can say the total energy available from the substance, we can say thus the total energy available from the substance is called, उसको क्या बोलते हैं, is called internal energy, is called internal energy. Understand? ये बात आपको मालूम होनी चाहिए. Is it clear? Now we can also say that the absolute value of internal energy is not be find out, because the value of internal energy of any matter depends on temperature. Internal energy is depends on what? Temperature. It depends upon the temperature. So we can say that any physical state of substance change, then the internal energy is also changed by changing any physical state of substance. The internal energy is also change. Right? Means अगर सॉलिड में से लिक्विड और लिक्विड में से गैस में कन्वर्ट करते हैं तो उसकी इंटरनल एनर्जी भी चेंज होती है. एंड द एब्सोल्यूट वैल्यू ऑफ इंटरनल एनर्जी कैन नॉट बी मेजर. एब्सोल्यूट वैल्यू ऑफ इंटरनल energy are not measured, right? It can only measure the change in the internal energy. The change in internal energy can be measured, but the change in internal energy is measured, right? How? Then let us suppose if the volume is constant, then whatever the heat will be produced, that is called the change in the internal energy. At a constant volume, the change in the heat produced, that is called the internal energy, right? During any reaction, अगर हम लेते हैं कोई भी reaction, तो देखो कि यहाँ पे we can say that when any chemical reaction is carried out at a constant volume, then the change in the heat is QE. Any chemical reaction carried out at constant volume V, right? The change in heat, that is called QE, is equal to the what? Difference between internal energy. Difference between internal energy of reactant and product, right? Difference between internal energy, right? Difference between internal energy of reactant and product. Is it clear? And thus we can say that I can write down QV, that is equals to UP minus UR, that is equals to delta U. So I can say that at a constant volume, the change in the heat is said to be the change in the internal energy. Or you can also say that the internal energy difference at constant volume is the change of heat energy, right? The difference in the internal energy, that is called the, at a constant volume, the change in the heat, right? So this is how you can write down the definition, that here delta U equals to, the question will be asked, prove that delta U equals to QV. Understand? So this is how you can do it. Okay. So UP minus UR means what? The internal energy of the product and internal energy of the reactant. The difference is there, right? So the difference in the internal energy at a constant volume is the change in the heat energy, right? The difference in the internal energy of what reactant and product is what at a constant volume, at constant volume is change to the heat, is we can say the change of the heat energy, the change of the heat energy, right? So this is how you can write out. Okay, so all these are the internal energy. So basically you have to know that in every substance there is a definite energy is stored in it, and that is depends on the basis of their mass as well as the characteristics of the structure, and that is called the internal energy. And the most important thing, that the absolute value of internal energy cannot be find out. You can measure the change in the internal energy. Why? Because it is a state function. It is a state function. Okay, so up to here it's enough. In the next video we are going to discuss about the enthalpy, right? What is enthalpy? What is the relationship is there between the enthalpy and entropy and internal energy, right? So up to here it's enough. Thank you very much.